Welcome back to Control, episode 35. We're back in the bridge room, the containment sector's bridge room. In the last episode, I talked about how I didn't understand why the bridges had an underside. Like they've got this upper floor, but they also have an underfloor that's just like walkways and stuff. And I didn't really get why that was. Well, the reason it's like that is because it makes jumping from bridge to bridge more interesting. You're not jumping from top of bridge to top of bridge. You're jumping from top of bridge to bottom of bridge to top of bridge to bottom of bridge. And that's a much better kind of heartbeat. There are a lot of other reasons why you might want to have the bridges have two floors. For example, it makes the tower taller. If the bridges were just one floor, then they would only be half the height, or even less, which means that the room just wouldn't have the same kind of height to it. That's just kind of a side note. Why we're really here is we're headed over to find our brother Dylan. Now, I think that, I guess it depends on whether or not it's saved properly. I think that I've already done this part. We'll find out if it tries to make us do a lot of fighting or something. But we've been searching for Dylan for quite a while, and he's through here, in theory.
He's so close.
Apparently it didn't save, so we're going to get to see the cutscene up close, and you can see just how awesome it is. So this is a loading shutter. They might not always be loading shutters, but that's what they were there invented for. The way that they work allows you to go through in such a way that you can unload all of the level behind you and load all the level in front of you without needing to worry about what the player can see.
Hello? Can you hear me? Jesse.
So this is the room where they were keeping our brother. And I have to say I really like this room, not because of how it's designed, but because of what the damage has done to it.
Jesse.
Emily? He's gone. Dylan isn't here. He might be nearby. Or maybe the hiss got to him. I don't know.
Jesse, listen. Dylan's here. With us. He just walked in.
Boo!
He is giving himself up. He's been affected by the hiss, but he is different than the others. We must isolate him.
I'm on my way. We need to get back.
So,
I have to see my brother.
on the scale of disappointing plot developments, that is not as disappointing as saying it was all a dream, but it's still pretty bad. We spent so much time searching for our brother. We found this really cool room where he was, and instead of like letting us see him escape or letting us, fight alongside him or against him or figure out what's going on, they just say, oh yeah, he went back to where everybody else always is. You don't have to worry about it anymore. Seriously? What a disappointing plot point. Anyway, this room is pretty nice. First off, it's got a lot of damage because it is has been ripped apart, as you can see. But it's also got a lot of hiss damage, meaning it's got a lot of modern art brutalism sculptures. I think that this is a really good looking room. They use the chaos of their the various kinds of chaos that they put in the game. They use them all at the same time and they get a pretty good result. You can really see how one side of the room has been hiss damaged more than the other, which really makes you feel like, this way is going forward into the depths of the hiss. Of course, there's no way for us to go this way, at least not yet. But you get the idea. The actual chamber in the middle is pretty nice. This is one of those assets where if it was intact, it would look really bad, or at least very boring. And we're going to see that later, I'm sure. But once it's ripped up, it looks great. Look, all this rock that got dropped on top of it. It's fantastic. But that's another thing to keep in mind. If you are trying to come up with a fun asset and you can't seem to figure out a good way to make it fun, you can always break it. Broken assets always look phenomenal. In this case, what we've got on top here, all this rock, this is black rock to keep him from escaping. Now, if it was intact, it would look really kind of sad, just kind of a 3-foot high wedge on top of a glass box. But because it's been shattered, we really get the impression that a tremendous amount of violence has been done. The black rock, which is supposed to be able to contain psychic powers, has been just ripped asunder like nobody's business. We can see the wire frame that held the roof together bent outward, so we know that this came from inside the room. We know that our brother has a lot of power. I think that's a really great visual. This is also really cool. This particular way that they've set this bent I-beam up. I just like how it looks. I'm not sure what those things on top are, these clamps, but they look great. If those clamps weren't there, the I-beam would feel kind of spare, kind of like they didn't put any effort in. But those, combined with the sparks and the little flap on the end, really do a good job of making us feel like that errant I-beam is part of the situation, rather than just being a slapped-in asset. This room is just fantastic. At least the way that it works is just fantastic. The fact that my brother isn't here, or isn't, just went back to where everybody else was, that's pretty sad. It's a misuse of a nice room, but it's okay.
All right, I won't take up too much of your time.
I do like this here. This is nice.
Like I said, I want to talk about Jessie, your sister.
This conversation where they're trying to convince him that both I am not worth knowing and also trying to track me down.
Back in ordinary.
And you don't anymore?
When I first got here, sure. I'd always hoped she'd come too. Find me, to take me home. We went everywhere together. Why should this be any different? Casper said she could come too, to the Bureau. If she wanted to.
Casper Van Dien?
She never did.
Why do you think that is?
Because she didn't care about me.
So they've told him that we chose not to come, but they give away the fact that they can't find us because they start to ask him questions about where we might be.
So she wanted to see the world. Did she ever mention any place in particular?
That's wonderful. That's the kind of writing I wish they did all the time. That sort of subtext that's super clear and palpable. That's wonderful writing. And it's a little bit of a shame. It goes on for a little bit longer, but you got the gist. It's a little bit of a shame that we don't see that quite as much. Most things are just not handled with quite that much clarity. They're handled much more bluntly and less elegantly. Anyway, we're supposed to go back to where everybody is, and I guess that means we're going to be doing a lot of fighting because I think that it's not going to let us go back there without shooting some folks. There's also a room on the second floor, and since the game didn't save, I bet that room is unexplored. Should we go and take a look? It's worth taking a look at. Is it on the second floor or the third floor? It might be the third floor. Let's just take a look. We'll go down, take a quick little scan, see what we can see. So the second and third floor of this room, I don't really care. I don't have to go hunt him down. The second and third floor of this room aren't plot rooms. They're not. They don't contain any reason for you to go there for plot reasons. You can just go there for kicks. And in this case, it's just a whole bunch of walled-off office areas, empty rooms and stuff. Not the most rewarding thing to explore, but it is nice to have these options. And the other floor, I think it must be one down. It could theoretically be the other side of this one, I suppose. It's over there. Okay, hold on. I gotta go over there. And being able to fly is super nice. There's the tree. It's a famous Christmas tree that we're not going to worry about. Where is it? Sorry, I should have checked. It's hard to tell where on the circle it is, just because it's such a big circle. You know? Oh, here it is. So, the archives room is an interesting place. It's really annoying to fight through, but it's very pretty. We'll see whether or not it saved the fact that I already fought. Because sometimes this game, I do a lot of... Oh, nope, there it is. I do a lot of save scumming. Just because that's the most sensible way to play it when you're trying to do a Let's Play. And sometimes it gets a little bit confused because the saves are all like set up with things like the saves are not a file, they're like 8 or 9 files, one for every sector of the area. And sometimes there's some kind of mismatch between the sector signings or something, and it will kind of flip out and erase one of the save files. And I think that's what happened here. I think the save file for this sector got erased. I got a warning when I tried to quit. And the result being that it forgot that I'd already cleared all this stuff, and it's making me clear it again. There might be a problem with saving and quitting between that cutscene and going back and talking to them. I'm not sure. Either way, this room is the archives, and you can see that we have a buddy here on the ground floor. That would be annoying enough, but the real issue is that there are several waves of soldiers that you have to fight off, and they are all obnoxious. But let's take a look at what we've got here visually. It's just a series of atriums. It's a short atrium and then a tall atrium. This is much more focused on the fight and the thing in the middle playing havoc, so it's a fairly simple room. But it's set up really nicely. I think I like the way that it looks. Because of these... Sorry, I keep thinking there's got to be there should be more troops, but I don't see them. Because it's not, it's modestly lit. It is a twilight room, meaning that it doesn't have a lot of really bright sources to pull your attention. And that's because they want you to be able to fight the waves of enemies. And for some reason, this time there were less than a third of the number of enemies that I fought last time. But it's hard to really see enemies when the room is, dark on the corners or whatever. So when you would light an entire room fairly evenly, it's usually because you need to be able to fight. I like this room is great. They've done a lot of recycling of assets, and I think it's worked really well. These, for example, I'm sure that it's a different asset because there's no reason to recycle the exact asset. But this concept is inherited from the cubicles, and they allow this to be a workspace. They turn what is obviously just 2 sets of drawers into a workspace just by designating it with a with a transparent barrier, a face shield. I think that's a super clever idea, and I really do love how these look. The corner lights really help to sell this whole situation. It's a shame that it's just kind of in the middle of nowhere and there's nothing to do back here. But that is true of this entire room. I'm sure that there is a reason this room exists, but I don't know it. And as you can see, we're just kind of poking around, looking for loot. And there's always this thrashing in the background. Not being able to concentrate because of a persistent enemy is a classic approach. It is, that's why Nemesis was such an effective enemy in Resident Evil. If you can't relax, then the game has you in the palm of its hand. And even if, in this case, it's unlikely that this thing will be able to sneak up on us and we can more or less just ignore it, it's still a constant reminder that the game has it in for us, and it's gonna try and make things miserable for us. That's a good way to do it. Makes it hard to do a Let's Play, or at least an analysis. If we take a look, there are things on the second floor as well, but they can't be accessed. If we take a look, you can see these are level 6 access, which we don't have yet. But most of the floor is taken up by... that's back out to the entrance. Most of the floor is taken up by these binder holders. What do you want to call these? These filing cabinets. These are super repetitive, and it really makes me feel like this whole room was intended as just a battle chamber, because there's really no variation to them. They just keep going and going and going. I'm not sure, just on a physical level, I'm not sure I would design in an atrium with walls that are just covered in bookshelves. That just seems like a strange thing to put in an atrium environment. Normally that's something that you put in side rooms, but I guess their options were limited. It's not like they were the ones that put it together, right? Ah, here's the rest of the enemies. Well, I think that's probably plenty for today. Next time we will try and figure out what's going on with our bro back at base. I don't think you need to stick around and watch me fight these guys.